When Liu Xianxia and Chen Ping'an walked out of the mud bottle lane, they found two groups of people standing on the left and right respectively. The little girl was riding on the neck of the burly old man. The proud boy in bright red robes was standing next to the elegant woman. When Liu Xianxia walked through it, he was calm and fell in the eyes of the white-haired old man. He was a bit of a big general. The prudence that the straw sandal boy tried to hide was quite out of the eye of the law. After saying goodbye to the two, Lu Zhenchun stayed in place trembling and carefully reported. Liu Xianxia proposed that all the mortal masters give an appropriate price. Next time, he will reluctantly give up his love and sell his family heirloom. The woman looked at the white-haired old man in Jian Mountain and asked with a smile, "What do you think, Master Abe?" The old man thought a little and said in a deep voice, "Before that, according to what Liu Xianxia said, give him a great wealth. That is, Jian Mountain can give the boy the identity of a true disciple of the Mountain Gate. In addition, I will privately lend him a magic weapon for 100 years. As for the Su family in Qingfeng City, do it yourself." The woman was shocked and said, "The true identity of Jian Mountain is extremely noble. Master Ape even has to take out a magic weapon. Is this young man surnamed Liu still a cultivation genius who was leaped by the porcelain beer when he was 9 years old?" The old man turned a deaf ear and just smiled at the little owner. "There are many shops in the town, each with its origin. Misconstrol around and maybe you can pick up the lake." The little girl shouted drive with childlike innocence. As the chief worshipper of Jian Mountain, the old man left and jogged like a mountain. The boy said with a smile, "Jian Mountain is really great." The woman motioned Lu Zhenchun to go back to his house first. She took her son on the street and explained the origin to him. In addition to the ordinary main mountain climbing road, there is a special sword path in Jian Mountain. Up to now, 6 paths to the top have been opened up, which means that 6 genuine sword immortals have emerged in Jian Mountain. The boy sneered. "What's the use of the thick-old calendar? How many years can you eat the old one? Even if the alchemists who can come into the town are better than our later groups, every family whose ancestors are not rich." The woman held the child's hand and said with a smile, "Do you know that in the last 100 years, 2 new sword ways are about to reach the top of Jian Mountain? The wonder of the little girl your age is that she can advance and retreat freely on the sword top with sword chang. Her stay time is even as long as several ancestors of Jian Mountain." The boy was stunned, then stopped and said angrily, "Since that stupid girl has such a good life experience, why didn't you tell me earlier? Mom, I wouldn't fight her all the way, so that she would contradict me if she had nothing to do. Wouldn't it be a great benefit for Qingfeng City if I married her as a daughter-in-law in a few years and then formed a Taoist couple with the trend?" The woman looked at the beautiful face that was still childish and angry, like a young tiger. She smiled instead of getting angry. "You and the little girl are great practitioners who are expected to ascend the upper 5 realms. So your marriage line will be more complex and changeable. They will act willfully and deliberately. But it is no beautiful. Do you really think that girl now just hates you wholeheartedly?" The boy frowned and said, "Otherwise," the woman said softly, "let it be." The boy suddenly said solemnly, "Mom, I don't like the guy behind Liu Xianxia. I don't like it at first sight." The woman asked curiously, "Why?" The child thought hard for a moment and replied, "This guy is a little strange. He is different from Lu Zhenchun, who knows everything, and Liu Xianxia, who doesn't know anything. Also, I especially hate his eyes." The woman thought she was a son and began to play childish again. So she persuaded him, "You can do whatever you want in the town. But if you want to think about the end of everyone here after the collapse of the world, you'll feel much better." The child nodded and subconsciously repeated the 2 words when he first saw a straw sandal teenager, Mo Liant. Out of the town, Chen Ping'an and Liu Xianxia soon saw the corridor bridge. Liu Xianxia asked casually, "Why did Song Jixin's father build the corridor bridge? The cover was also built. And why did he want to cover the previous stone arch bridge? It is said that the stone bridge has not been demolished. Just like wearing a dress. I don't know if it will be hot in summer. Ha ha. At last, the tall boy was amused by himself. At this end of the corridor bridge, a gold plaque is hung. It is a full-character plaque written by someone who doesn't know. The words are huge. Wind and water rise. When the two teenagers walked up the steps, Liu Xiaoyan stamped his face and said mysteriously, "Old man Yao once told me that there was something strange under the steps. He said that when the corridor bridge was just built, one night, Song Jixen's father ordered someone to dig a big pit here and bury a large porcelain pot waiting for Haya. Are you afraid?" Chen Ping'an didn't have a good way. "There's nothing to be afraid of." When they walked into the shady corridor bridge, Liu Xiaoyan said in a low voice, "Do you think it's because the deep pool under the bridge drowned better than several people? You need to invite monks and Taoists to suppress evil." Chen Ping'an never talks nonsense about ghosts and gods. Liu Xiaoyan lost interest because he couldn't get the answer. This newly built wooden corridor bridge still has a faint smell of wood and paint. The wood of the main beams and columns is cut down from the deep mountains and old forests that have been barren for countless years. It is very difficult to carry out the mountain. The water level of the stream around the mountain is not high at ordinary times, which is far from enough to float the huge wood dart. So we had to choose the heavy rain. The mountain road is muddy and slippery. It is extremely dangerous that a person will fall into the flood if he is not careful. Fortunately, no young people fell into the water and died that time. Some people say that it was the transportation of wood out of the mountain that Mr. Jingchen went to help himself and told people how to operate. Therefore, he entrusted Mr. QI's blessing to make everything safe. When he reached the corridor bridge steps in the north, Liu Xiaoyan suddenly sat down and sat on the huge long blue stone. Chen Ping'an had to squat aside with him. Liu Xiaoyan asked with a smile, "If it weren't for me, would you and Song Jixen become very good friends?" Chen Ping'an shook his head and said, "It may be better, but it's not much better." Liu Xiaoyan asked curiously, "Why? You two neighbors are about the same age." To tell the truth, Song Jixen likes to drop the bookcase and speaks unkindly. But he doesn't seem to do anything harmful. You have a good temper. Why not? Chen Ping'an said with a smile. Don't talk about this. When we get to the blacksmith shop, you must not be fooling around. Whether you can keep your treasure armor depends on whether you can become Master Ruan's entry apprentice. I know. Chen Ping'an doubt to tell you the truth. You like to talk. You really have to change your temper in the future, or you will be bored to death. Liu Xiaoyan fell back, put the back of his head on the top step of the corridor bridge, looked at the blue sky and said, "You follow old man Yao far and climb the mountain very high. How far can you see?" Chen Ping'an casually pulled out a licorice, dusted it off and chewed it in his mouth. The pace was not clear. The furthest time was the year before last. I went back and forth with old man Yao. It was about 10 days. I bypassed more than 10 forbidden mountains alone. Finally, I came to a very strange mountain, which was so high that it was frightening. You may not believe it. When you climbed halfway up the mountain, you saw it was full of clouds. Finally, old man Yao and I finally got to the top of the mountain and got married through ... Liu Xiaoyan waited for a long time. He didn't wait for the following. He turned his head and said with a smile, "I didn't leave my crush if you didn't shit so much." Chen Ping'an was a little sad and said softly, "You know, old man Yao has a bad impression on me. He almost never told me the truth and doesn't want to teach me the real skill of porcelain dart every time he goes into the mountain. Old man Yao doesn't like to talk. He often doesn't say a few words from entering the mountain to returning to Longyao. However, after reaching the top of the mountain, old man Yao is probably in a good mood. So he said more and let me see the wind over there, Jian. Just see it. Don't talk too much after going down the mountain. A man should bury his head in his work and just talk. Even if he goes out of the town in the future, he will be ashamed." Liu Xiaoyan comforted. "It's not that I say good words to old man Yao. He doesn't like you, but he doesn't hate you. He has a bad temper to everyone, so he'll be a little better on my side." Chen Ping'an nodded and said, "So I've always been grateful to old man Yang from the bottom of my heart." Liu Xiaoyan suddenly said angrily, "After pulling so much, you haven't seen anything in the end." Chen Ping'an stretched out his hand and pointed to the east. "The mountain we climbed is already very high, but when I look at the top of the mountain, there is another mountain in the east, which is higher. I can't tell how high it is. Liu Xiaoyan scolded and said, I just saw a high mountain. I fucking thought you saw an immortal flying in the clouds. Chen Ping'an thought for a moment, full of longing, and said, maybe there are gods on that mountain. Liu Xiaoyan asked with a smile. Chen Ping'an, do you think immortals also need to eat, drink and lesser? Chen Ping'an rubbed his chin. If the gods also want to shit, it's more outrageous. Liu Xiaoyan slapped Chen Ping'an on the head, then stood up and ran. This immortal shit on your head. Liu Xiaoyan didn't take it lightly or seriously. This time, Chen Ping'an was a little dizzy. He didn't want to hunt down the tall boy. After getting up, he said to himself, Thunder. Are the immortals sleeping and snoring? If it rains, it shouldn't be the immortals peeing. Then what miserable ... double quotes. Chen Ping'an quickened his pace and soon caught up with Liu Xiaoyan. Finally, I came to the blacksmith shop by the river. 7 or 8 yellow mud houses and huts have been built out in Chen Ping'an's eyes. These are a lot of copper money. There are also a large number of young people in the small town who are drilling wells. Most of their peers are apprentices from Long Yao Kill like Liu Xiaoyan. They are lucky to continue to work in the blacksmith shop without the porcelain rice bowl awarded by the emperor. However, according to Liu Xiaoyan, most of these people who held but temporary odd jobs. Master Ruan said that he can only accept them unless the few disciples entered the house, and the rest became long-term workers at most. Liu Xiaoyan waved and said, wait here. I'll say hello to Master Ruan and see if I can show you the scene of forging iron. Tut-tut. If you see his daughter swinging and beating iron, I promise I can scare you to death. Chen Ping'an stood where he was and didn't walk around the wheel. Looking around, there are already 7 rudiments of water wells. There are still wheel frames and fences at the wellhead. Some wellheads are constantly drilled out with dustpans on their heads. Looking at the busy people drilling wells, Chen Ping'an habitually squatted down, picked up a handful of soil and rubbed it slowly at his fingertips. It feels wet, but it's no water-based soil. On the contrary, it's fire-based soil, but it belongs to the less kind of fire-based soil. According to Old Man Yao, it's cold flowing fire soil in July. The soil will turn into warm and cool by itself, which is not dry and has strong plasticity. Moreover, it means that it's not easy to collapse when strengthening the shaft wall. It's a good thing. Obviously, Mr. Ruan, a blacksmith, is definitely not a layman. Even if he is not an expert in digging wells, it's just that Chen Ping'an doesn't quite understand what to do with so many wells in such a big place. Chen Ping'an turned his head to the stream and grinned. Now this nameless stream, in the eyes of the straw sandal boy, is a treasure house of gold, silver and copper money. But after touching the snake gold stone tonight, Chen Ping'an wants to sneak into the mud bottle lane and dig under the big water tank in his house. According to Gu Kan's whisper before leaving the town, Gu Kan was burning his ass and didn't say anything. He just said it was his family's treasure. Even his mother doesn't know where he hid it. Chen Ping'an wanted to laugh at the thought of the slug in the past. Chen Ping'an was a follower behind Liu Xiaoyan's ass. He followed Liu Xiaoyan to catch fish, catch snakes and dig out the bird's nest. After Chen Ping'an became a teenager, he also had a small attendant behind him for the helpless straw sandal boy. One is his brother and the other is his brother. One needs his gratitude and the other needs his care. So over the years, Chen Ping'an has lived a hard life, but not hard. Liu Xiaoyan quickly ran back with a basket on his back. Chen Ping'an was watching the scene of sinking a well and transporting soil next to the well. Liu Xiaoyan kicked Chen Ping'an's ass and kicked the straw sandal boy almost to eat shit. When he looked back and saw that he was a tall boy, he didn't care. Liu Xiaoyan said carelessly, "It's done up, Master Ruan told me not to run around here these days. I'll dig wells during the day and forge iron at night. After 10.5 days, I'll be his first disciple in the town. What's his name? Kaishan disciple. I'll get you a basket and help you touch the stone. Touch it from the blacksmith shop to the corridor bridge. It's agreed in advance that Qingyu Bay is the place that I can't help you with Feng's paddle." Master Ruan said that if I dare to cross the places north and west of the corridor bridge these days, I'll break my leg. Liu Xiaoyan put his arms around the neck of the straw sandal boy and whispered, Master Ruan said that the town would not lose things. He also said that those foreigners abide by a very strange rule. They can be fair traders, swindlers, and even beggars who pick up rags. They can't be sneaky thieves. They said that God will not or close their eyes here. They just stare at us. You say it's scary or not? I'm scared anyway. Liu Xiaoyan suddenly threatened. Surname Chen, you can continue to live in my house, but don't wait for me to go back. You have sold my treasure armor. Chen Ping and punched Liu Xiaoyan on the chest, which made him so tall that the young man quickly let go and rubbed hard for a few times before he calmed down. He scolded. The little hairy monkey, like a thin bamboo pole, can't have such great strength. Can you walk 100 miles away from Old Man Yao? We'll cut firewood and burn charcoal in the mountains for a few months, and you can boost your strength to death, Chen Ping said with a smile. Anyway, I can run back to the town before you with a basket of stones on my back. Liu Xiaoyan squinted and said. Then who are we holding our breath under the water for a long time? Near the riverside, Chen Ping bent down and rolled up his trouser legs and said casually, I won't do anything that is more than one breath. Before entering the water, Chen Ping pulled out a lot of riverside spring grass and patted it in the basket. He also nagged that he would put more grass after picking up 20 stones. Liu Xiaoyan was so annoyed that he had to throw the basket behind him to Chen Ping, who refused. He said that if he carried the basket on his own, according to Liu Xiaoyan's irritability, he would throw stones directly into the basket, which would hurt him. Liu Xiaoyan almost had to put it down on the spot. Xianxia. These colorful stones have been worthless for thousands of years. Why are you so charming when you come to Chen Ping? How dare you dislike Uncle Liu's technique is not gentle enough. But in the end, the tall boy still didn't want to touch the stones. Chen Ping and one of them, left and right, planned to sweep the stream thoroughly. The streams here are still mostly knee-high, and some are slightly higher, so the water level will reach the waist. Occasionally, there are small puddles waiting for others to be high, mostly the footholds where boulders gather. When we get to these places, it is time for Liu Xiaoyan to show his skills first. He took off the basket and handed it to the straw sandal boy squatting on the boulder. He dived to the bottom of the water in one breath and took out the snake gold stone he wanted from the gap of the boulder of the behemoth or even the pile of stones. Of course, Chen Ping can do it, but it will be very hard, time-consuming and labor-consuming, far more than Liu Xiaoyan. Before touching the corridor bridge, the basket was full of 7 or 8 points. Among them, there was a dark green snake gold stone. Liu Xiaoyan touched it at the bottom of a deep pit 3 times before he could finally touch it. It was as big as the palm of his hand, mixed with golden dots and wavy lines. The stone was firm and thin, and the beginning was very heavy. When Chen Ping rubbed it with his hand, he felt a bright splash down as long as you are not blind. You know this stone is very unusual. Finally, the 2 teenagers sat side by side on a huge stone in the stream. Liu Xiaoyan supported his hands on the stone surface, looked at the slowly flowing stream, and asked, Chen Ping, have you ever thought about leaving the town in the future? Chen Ping replied, I haven't thought about it for the time being. I have to have money when I go away. Moreover, after I leave, what should I do about the house? And no one will help clean it up. What if it breaks down one day? Moreover, I need to often pull weeds at my parents' grave. Liu Xiaoyan said helplessly. Why do you always think of so many useless things? It's boring. No wonder Song Jingsen said that you are the life of ghost beating the wall. You can't go out all your life in such a big far place. Chen Ping turned his head and asked with a smile. Do you remember what I told you last time? That's the tree. Liu Xiaoyan didn't have a good way. It's worth making a fuss that there is a tree on the grave. Besides, it's also the grave of another ancestor of the Chen family. It has nothing to do with you. Chen Ping. Chen Ping sat cross-legged and sighed softly. I don't know if there are many people surnamed Chen outside the town. Liu Xiaoyan Platform Removal Road. I don't know outside the town. I only know that in the town, there are only 3 or 2 kittens and dogs surnamed Chen. Besides you, it seems that they are all the family children of the 4 surnames and 10 nationalities. They have been slaves for generations. What's funny is that these people act as cattle and horses in the house and bow their heads. But as soon as they get out of the big house, they immediately change their faces, and like dogs best seeing people as inferior dogs. So old man Yao is right. If you Chen Ping'an will be their servant one day, your Chen family, who has not moved out of the town, will be destroyed. According to old man Yao, there were 2 people surnamed Chen in the town at first, but one of them moved out very early. Chen Ping'an was also prosperous in the past, but before it's been too long, even old man Yao can't tell whether it's hundreds, 500,000, 800, or 1,000 years. Later, he was divided into several rooms. The population became more and more scarce. The luck was probably taken away by the one who moved out. The incense was often broken, so that many graves were gradually left unattended. In addition, most of the hills where the graves were located were continuously supervised by the imperial court officer. The order has become a forbidden mountain. Old man Yao took Chen Ping'an into the mountain for the last time. When he passed one of the mountains, he pointed out to him a place where the ancestors of another Chen family were buried. The tomb was on that mountain, and feng shui was very good. As for Chen Ping'an, old man Yao said that the immortals could not be found. In recent hundreds of years, the descendants of this group surnamed Chen have no promise and are full of broken settlements. Except it's good for nothing to die and not be a slave to the 4 surnames and 10 families. Chen Ping'an once secretly went to find the grave of Chen's ancestors. As a result, when he arrived at the place, he only saw weeds and many foxes and rabbits, but he didn't see the grave. Among them, there was a tree that the grass shoe boy couldn't recognize. It was not high, which was much shorter than the old locust tree in the town. Overgrown with weeds, fox and rabbit haunt, lonely and luxuriant, Chen Ping'an shook his head and said, "Before my mother left, she asked me to swear that I could be a beggar, even if I starved to death. I was not allowed to be a servant to those big families." Liu Xianxia blurted out, "Before your mother died, didn't she want you to swear that you can't be an apprentice in the Dragon Kill?" The straw sandal boy looked gloomy, did not refute, and did not become angry after being exposed. Liu Xianxia was a little guilty. He was not the kind of temper who was willing to say sorry after doing something wrong. He had to pretend that nothing had happened. He got up and said, "Go and dig a well. By the way, I'll grind with Master Ruan and try to let you come here as a short-time apprentice. It's easy to touch a stone at that time." Chen Ping'an said, "Don't worry. Wait until those 2 groups of people give up trying to leave the town. I'll take care of your house during this time." Liu Xianxia asked curiously, "Why do you think I can escape by learning from Master Ruan?" Chen Ping'an thought for a moment and said uncertain, "It's like a sudden rain. You have to find and eat to hide." Liu Xianxia turned his head and looked at the iron shop of the sword furnace. "Who do you think Master Ruan is? He doesn't look like a powerful person. Can he hold down those 2 groups of people?" Chen Ping'an comforted, "People can't judge by appearance." Liu Xianxia turned his head and said, "You look like a poor man. Are you a poor man?" Chen Ping'an grinned and had nothing to say. Liu Xianxia stood up and asked, "Would you like to carry it to the corridor bridge?" Chen Ping'an shook his head and said, "No, it's not heavy. Remember to return the basket to me next time." After Liu Xianxia said these words, he jumped directly off the boulder and walked quickly in the stream. Splashing countless splashes, Chen Ping'an picked up the basket, carefully stepped down the boulder, and walked slowly to the corridor bridge after landing. After Chen Ping'an walked some distance, he heard a burst of footsteps behind him. He turned his head and looked at Liu Xianxia. In the warm sunshine of early spring, the tall boy robbed the basket of the straw sandal boy, carried it on his back, turned his head and said sarcastically, from a distance, "It's like a small grasshopper carrying a big stone. It's really poor. I'll be kind and help you carry it to the corridor bridge." In the spring breeze, the 2 teenagers walked together. Surnamed Chen, "If I succeed in my studies in the future, I must go out and have a look, marry a daughter-in-law who is more beautiful than Zhigui, drink the most expensive wine, live in the largest house, and ride the fastest horse. I'm going to see mountains as high as the sky and countless rivers larger than our streams. In short, I, Liu Xianxia, will never stay here and die all my life. In the spring breeze, tall teenagers are looking forward to the future, and straw sandal teenagers to grassroots. One saying and one listening, Chen Ping'an carried the baskets of stones back to Liu Xianxia's yard. He still picked out the most favorite stones and took them to the side house. The rest remained in the kitchen. After locking the door of the house and the courtyard, he ran to the mud bottle lane. When he got to his yard, he saw the girl in black sitting in the yard basking in the sun. After Chen Ping'an said hello, he began to deconct medicine. It's strange that the sound of chopping came from the yard next door. Although Song Jigsan said that there was no father or mother in the eyes of outsiders, he had no shortage of food and clothing for so many years, and even had a lot of money. He didn't dare to say that he was better than the young master in the house with 4 surnames. He was really no worse than the legitimate children of 10 families. He had 4 treasures in the study, elegant play on the desk, and clear supply in the study. Many luxury items that Chen Ping'an had never seen or heard of moved to Song Jigsan's house every now and then. In fact, there has never been real dirty and manual work in Song Jigsan. Pickles are too smelly. Song Jigsan doesn't allow maidservants to do it. It's too tired to cut firewood. Song Jigsan directly buys bundles of firewood and bags of superior charcoal every year. When Chen Ping'an brought the medicine soup to the girl in black, the yard next door was still chopping firewood intermittently. When Chen Ping'an was drinking the medicine, she couldn't help walking to the courtyard wall and tiptoed to look. She found that Zhigui was carrying a kitchen knife and cutting a person. It was an embryo made of wood that Chen Ping'an had been firing porcelain for many years. She had seen a lot of good things and cut countless trees. So at a glance, it can be seen that the wood is as dark as jade, that it must be a very old object. Moreover, the puppet is covered with dense red and black spots. The puppet has been cut and chopped by Zhigui and cut into many pieces. The girl suddenly turned her head and found Chen Ping'an, with sweat and stains on her face. She raised her arm, wiped her face, and said with a far-fetched smile, "You're back. I wanted to borrow a firewood knife from you, but the guest in your house didn't want to open the door for me." Chen Ping'an was stunned. "I'll get you a firewood knife right now. Don't use too much force at the beginning. Firewood knives are no more slippery than kitchen knives. Don't hurt yourself." The girl sat on a small bench, exhausted, waved and said, "I know. Go and get it quickly." Chen Ping'an took back the firewood knife. The girl had stood over the courtyard wall and asked with a smile, "Do you know what that is?" Chen Ping'an shook his head and said, "I don't know." Zhigui didn't give an answer, so he turned and continued to sit on a small bench and chop hard. Her strange and stagnant movements and all kinds of thankless wrong postures made Chen Ping'an very anxious. However, since others didn't ask for help, Chen Ping'an didn't be amorous about turning around. She found that Miss Ning was no longer in the yard. Chen Ping'an remembered the incident, quickly walked to the house, put something on the table and put it opposite the girl in black. It's a snake gold stone, which can be held in the palm of one hand. It's like a piece of frozen honey. It has fine texture and very positive color. Ning Yao was a little strange. Chen Ping'an said with a smile, "Miss Ning, it's for you." The girl in black, who couldn't leave her body, suddenly asked, "Do you like this one best?" Chen Ping'an was embarrassed. This probably rank 4th. I've hidden the best 3. Then she took the stone, twisted her fingers, raised it over her head, and the light entered the house through the window and reflected on the stone. She raised her head, narrowed her eyes, and carefully observed the subtle lines of the stone. She looked at the stone. The boy looked at her. In the middle of the night, a teenager sneaked into the mud bottle lane. Like a wildcat walking at night, he quietly came to Gu Kan's yard. He found a large water tank in the corner of the yard. After squatting down, he found that the snake gold stones that had been stacked neatly had been picked up. It seemed that this man knew the value of the stones earlier than Chen Ping'an. Gu Kan is the only freak in the town who likes to collect snake gold stones. No matter how many he finds in the stream, he only takes 1 piece home each time. The child only selects the most pleasing stone. Over time, he saves 50 or 60 stones to cover the gap at the bottom of the water tank. After Chen Ping'an removed many dried up snake gold stones, He was relieved to see that there was no trace of excavation at the bottom of the water tank. He began to dig the soil bit by bit with his right hand. Finally, when he touched the butter paper, his heart shook and slowed down. At last, he took out the object wrapped in butter paper, which looked like a book. After hiding in his arms, Chen Ping'an refilled the earth and looked carefully at the snake gallstones. The remaining stones are dead. Compared with the stones Chen Ping'an picked up from the stream these 2 times, they're completely different in color, texture, and weight. These stones in front of him were like a dead old man, and the ones Chen Ping'an picked up were like newborn babies. Vibrant, Chen Ping'an thought and planned to leave the mud bottle laying in the direction of his house. When he came to the door of Song Jixin's family yard, he heard a squeak and the door opened. Chen Ping'an had to pretend to knock on his door and shout her, "Miss Ning, are you asleep? I'll come back and get something." The light in the house soon lit up, and the girl in black opened the gate to Chen Ping'an. Next door, the maid Zhigui walked out of the house slowly. When she got to the yard, she saw the shadow of Chen Ping'an. She held a large yellow book in her arms. She shook her head and tottered in her mouth, as if she had caught a pair of dog men and women by chance. She walked alone in the mud bottle lane, skipping and skipping. Her golden pupil, in the alley at night, looked particularly cold and sacred. Let the slender and graceful girl be like a dragon swimming in a narrow stone crack. It seems that as long as she goes out of the alley, she will take the river into a dragon. Although Ning Yao let Chen Ping'an into the yard and even into the house, her face was very ugly. She sat at the table, one arm against the scabbard, and her fingers gently knocked on the handle. After Chen Ping'an confirmed that Zhigui walked into the alley, he was embarrassed and explained, "I went to Gu Kan's house to get something. As a result, she was just about to go out. I had to hide here." Miss Ning, "Don't think about her," she asked. "What is it?" Chen Ping'an hesitated and took out the butter paper bag. "I don't know now," she turned and said. "Open it yourself before you decide whether to let me know." Chen Ping'an nodded, sat opposite her desk, opened layers of butter paper, and mud crumbs rolled down on the table. Finally, an ancient book was indeed exposed. There are only 2 characters on the cover of ancient books. Chen Ping'an only knows one of them, Manton. He put the ancient book on the table, turned the direction, pushed the girl in black, and asked curiously, "Miss Ning, what does this word read?" The girl turned around again, glanced down and said, "Shake." The title of the book shakes the mountain.